Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Moon Colony live stream. It's good to see you all. I hope you're all having a wonderful Friday. It's the end of the week, finally, and the end of the month, which means that for some of
Yes.
us, it's payday, which is even better. It's a triple threat. End of the week, end of the
Yeah,
month. Well, and payday, so perfect. Um,
that is perfect. January, go away.
January's gone, the longest and worst month of the year out of the way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we got Alex with us here again today. Hey Alex, how are you?
Hi. I'm good, thanks.
Good. Um,
Also, reeling in excitement about it being Friday.
good. Yeah, that's the only acceptable response. Um, so today we're going to be looking at some of the paint over submissions that were open in our Discord. I opened them at the start of this week, so people had a few days to find some splash arts or some illustrations to send in. And Alex has kindly taken a look through them and picked out a selection based on whatever criteria he may have put on them. And
My own secret criteria.
yeah, yeah, the Alex Heath meter
Yeah.
criteria.
It's a complicated algorithm.
Mm, mm.
I've written myself.
Yeah. um, and yeah, so we're going to be doing some paint overs for them, and hopefully you guys can learn a thing or two, even if it's not your artwork. I know people found last time super helpful, so I'm sure it'll be just as helpful for them this time. And if you miss it, then don't worry, because I will be uploading this to YouTube after the fact. Normally I do a dual stream, but last time it like killed the stream pretty much entirely, so I'm kind of scared to do it now. Uh, so I will leave it for now and just upload it after the fact. Um, but we've still got everyone in Twitch, so hello Twitch chat. Happy Friday. Does the algorithm include heads or tails? Who's to say? Who can say? If we if we
It's
told you, we'd have to kill you, unfortunately.
I don't know how it works.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Um, yeah, great. So let's. I mean, I'm ready to get started whenever you are, Alex. Unless you wanted to do a bit of a preamble. It's up to
No.
you.
No. Yeah. I'll
Okey-dokey.
jump straight in.
Nice.
Um,
Um,
Alrighty. So I picked this one to start with.
yeah.
I
Um,
didn't look at anyone's names,
it
so
is Felipe Modesto's piece.
well, there we go.
Yeah.
All
They,
right,
uh,
perfect.
yeah.
So yeah, I picked this one because I really like the character. It's very cool. I like the design, and I think they kind of mentioned in the description that they felt like it was kind of flat,
Mm,
and that they maybe wanted some help with that flatness going in.
mhm,
Which which is a fair um, criticism and something that does come up a fair bit um, with splash art compositions is like how to make it feel dynamic and like use the space,
mhm,
you know. And I think the biggest thing for this uh, is the orientation of the character to the frame of the picture. Um, if I was to look at this from above, I have the guy,
mhm.
head, shoulders, wings, uh, and the camera like this.
Yep.
And he is flat to that picture plane. So all of this distance between camera and character, and then all of this distance behind him to the furthest part of the background. Um, because we're not using and filling this space, uh, it actually makes the picture feel really kind of still and kind of calm.
Mhm.
And there isn't anything that like branches from like here to here across this space and really kind of gives us this dynamism um, that shows off the character and maybe shows us how like powerful he is. So I guess if I'm looking at this, and I wouldn't necessarily even touch the background here because this wouldn't be necessary. But I would look to try and traverse the space with this character um, a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was going to sketch him out, I would maybe do something a little bit like this to do that. And this is something that I think we talked about quite a bit last time about using the space.
Yeah.
And I think most of the compositions that we did end up talking about last time, it was very much the thing that kind of stuck out about most of them was using this space.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this time, this is maybe one of the only ones that I feel like this particular piece of feedback would be the most kind of warranted
Mm-hmm.
and prominent. And actually, there's something like else that I want to talk about with most of the compositions today, so that we get a bit more of a different learning from last time.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, I think what I would try and do is use the space that the character is in a bit more,
Mm-hmm.
like this, where instead of everything being flat to the camera, we're using, what you'd call in 3D like Z space, the depth,
The depth. Yeah.
in the illustration, and do this, to make a bridge from foreground to middle ground to background and so on. And this can really help with the feeling of dynamism in the piece, even if we don't change the pose. Like, I'm not doing anything about the pose here that is putting him into action or anything. But what I am doing is kind of bringing parts of this much closer to us, and yeah, making that bridge, foreground, middle ground, background, in this way. Can maybe even curve this wing down a bit. And for this reason, that you could keep a lot of the same background. The background has nice kind of depth to it already. But yeah, the character for me would maybe do a little bit more something like this. And you'll see this a lot in splash art, basically, like using the space in such a way to make things a bit more dynamic, give you something closer to the camera, and so on. And when you turn it this way as well, if I drop a little bit of value behind him, gives you okay, a little bit.
It gives you a black
the
screen.
ultimate. Yeah, like if you drop the ultimate value down there behind him, and I just turn this off for a second, because he's flat to the camera here. This rim light that you've got is like very tiny.
Yeah.
You can only edge him like an outline, basically, because the light source that is on him is like so behind him and he's not turned into it in any way. That you only allow yourself to have this line, and we get a bit more sort of interesting with that rim light, and sort of pick up, say, like the edge of his face a bit more, a bit onto the chest plane, so on the inside of the wing, and really like frame his face. So we can do something a little bit like this, and then secondarily we have that kind of blood magic or whatever it was that was going on here. But this can sit against the darkness of the wings that are inside and in the shadow, and so on. So this can have its own contrast and lighting, and this stuff is something that magic can go wherever it wants.
True that.
Yeah, magic has like several different passports. It can go anywhere. Like, so you can use this to travel around the illustration and do a similar thing to the dynamic nature of the setup with the wings and so on.
Yeah.
And you can go along these kind of lines, and like I said, you'd be able to keep pretty much the same background for this as well, because it doesn't really change. I'm not going to be able to do this, but it doesn't really change the orientation that we're seeing him from, essentially, too much. And yeah, if if I zoom in a little bit to like how I would crop this image to maybe something like this, you know, and I draw over it with the magic green pen. You know, we have big foreground shape that catches the eye and leads us back to focal point. We have, you know, this foreground shape transitioning into the midground where our character is. So there's a nice thing for the eye to follow, and we're traversing that space. We have the arm as well that is coming from the midground forward towards us. Again, like framing this nice focal point. We still keep that nice thing that you had set up with the wings where it frames his head. So it's like his head is against the sky, silhouetted, framed in the wings. That's really cool. And then we can continue this arc background with these wings further in the background and kind of set up another frame. So you've got several like frames within a frame. I'll just draw over those quickly in a different color. Oop. To show you what I mean. But you've got the frame of the image, obviously. Boom, boom, boom. You got the frame. Then you've got the frame of the wings. And then you've got the frame of the wings. And each one of these is like concentrically like pulling us in further towards our focal point. So it's a really nice device to use. And you kind of were doing it already in here. So I'm just picking up on what you have there. But yeah, compositionally, these scribbles would be sort of where I'd look to go with this to get away from the flatness. The other parts of this is something that I think I can help with the other illustrations as well. So I will like move on to the next one, but essentially this does apply to this one as well. And that is lighting, and the lighting here being quite flat, it doesn't necessarily conform to the forms of the body. It's like everything almost feels like it's lit very diffusedly lit with a diffused light. Yeah. It's my native language.
I see that all the time. I'm just like, I'm not even good at my own language, so there's no way I'm gonna be good at another one.
Yeah, diffused. It's lit with a very diffused light, and so it kind of flattens everything out. There is less of a sort of planar appearance to this overall. But yeah, there's some other images that we'll get to that talk about lighting a bit more heavily, like the next one, for example, which will apply to this as well. But yeah, really cool piece. I like the character. Very, very metal.
Yeah.
Very edgy. Yeah. Suspicious man. Got suspicious wings. Very suspicious shoulder pad.
The man, he's just a suspicious guy.
Right in.
But yeah, Felipe, in the chat, I see you said you just got here in time to see it live. If you missed like the first part, I'm gonna upload it onto YouTube after the fact, so you can like go back and watch it. So, but
yes,
yeah, as Alex said, this next stuff should apply to you anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the wings are very cool. They're very like biblical angel looking. Always cool. All right. Yeah, sorry if I flip these and start drawing on them in a different way. Just sometimes it feels easier for me to draw things a certain way. So like characters looking this way, I find very difficult to draw. So I always flip them and then flip them back. So just in case people are like, why? Why does he keep doing this?
Yeah.
It's because my hands.
I'm built different.
I'll flip this back. Yeah, I have two left hands.
Yeah. This one is from someone called Tired Old Soul. Man, I relate to that a lot. Uh, so if you're here, say hi. Let us know. But do you have notes on what it is that they are looking for? Do you want me to give you any notes, or are you good to just straight go for it?
Sure. Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, I'm gonna straight go for it.
yeah, I
No,
think you were
go on.
pretty much
If
right
there is
because they were
anything
talking about
that
lighting and textures and stuff. So
perfect.
you
I didn't
are
know.
in chat.
I did read them all.
Welcome. Yeah, yeah.
I promise
I
I did.
promise I read them.
Okay. I promise I read them. Yes. Uh, so yeah, first of all, very cool illustration. I do like all these D&D like group illustrations. Yeah, I think it's very cool. If I had a D&D group, I would be drawing a D&D group illustration myself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do really like these. Um, so yeah, with this one, I think there's a couple of things I wanted to highlight. One is about light sources, and that'll be the main one, and I'll get to that. But the first one is about picking colors and how this impacts lighting.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this sets up like a kind of a blue-orange contrast, complementary colors can be very interesting in a composition. It's done all the time and so on. And that's fine. And it can work pretty well. But what happens is if you have a surface that is blue, aka this dude, aka the clothing of this guy, and you try and light a blue object with orange light, you are going to run into a situation where you are adding saturation that is unnatural and wouldn't show on the blue object to try and make your light source work. What I mean by that is a blue object doesn't reflect any orange light. There is no orange in it. So when you light something blue with an orange light source, it is going to have the effect of light on it, but it is not going to reflect at the same saturation that it would do on, say, like uh, something that was closer to orange. Let's say like a dark red
Yeah.
object or even a gray object, for example. Because yeah, there isn't anything in that surface that is reflecting the orange light. So it's reflecting some of the light, but it's like quite a small amount.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to say, look at a blue object under an orange light, the shadows of that blue would look very, very dark and desaturated. And the light on that would like appear to desaturate the surface to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So your blue dude getting lit by this candle would actually be a lot more desaturated, like something closer to this,
Right.
in the way that he reflected the light. And you wouldn't see so much of this saturation at all in the shadow side of him. Like this would be very desaturated because of this. And this, this is basically how, colored lights and colored surfaces work and reflect light.
Mm-hmm.
That if you have the complements, whatever they are, two colors on the opposite end of the color wheel, and one is the light source and one is the object, they are going to like cancel each other out to a certain degree where the saturation of both of them is going to be diminished and the effective range of them and the effective look of them is going to be diminished too. And so when you do something like this, where you have the orange light on the blue surface, it gives this guy the appearance of like a Warhammer model that's been
Yeah.
painted to have the lighting on it. It's like, and it doesn't work in the eye the same way that this works here, for example, where it feels like light on a surface and a surface turning away from the light source. Like you could almost mistake this guy for actually having an orange front. You know, like his
Yeah.
skin goes from blue to orange in its pigmentation across the skin. Um, and that's why this feels like really kind of otherworldly and a bit unnatural.
Hmm.
And why I think they've opted to punch up the saturation of the orange, because you would probably grabbed the orange and started painting this like opaquely on the blue, like on the blue, and you were like, wow, it's going gray
Right.
like this. And you're like, yeah, that is what would
That's
happen,
how it should be. Yeah.
essentially. Yeah, that's how it should be. But in your mind, you're like, but it's such a warm light source, so
Mhm.
you punch up the saturation, and then it starts to look really odd.
Yeah.
Whereas this guy, he could be very close to the light. It's just going to appear very desaturated on him. And like I said, the shadows would be there'd be no color at all in them.
Mm.
Um, so it's like if you were to, I mean, yeah, it's the I'm just going over the same point again, but yeah. So that's one thing with the colored lighting is like you have to be careful about your color choices
Mm.
within that. Uh, and then the other thing about the lighting here is that these two light sources are competing with kind of equal strength within the illustration. Pardon me. So my poor turtle man here, he's getting absolutely annihilated by both light
Yeah.
sources. Um, he has this like uh candle that is throwing out like 2,000 watts of light versus like this incandescent magic ball
Hmm.
that's doing the same, and this guy is being affected by them in equal measure from both sides. So he basically doesn't have any shadows apart from occlusions,
Yeah.
and uh, this just makes him he's like absolutely blasted
Yeah.
by all of this.
It's getting
Um,
roasted.
yeah, he is. He's like he probably wasn't like this when the light before this started. You know, he's like he
Yeah.
might have. It looks like he's dried out. You know,
Yeah.
uh, shrunk in. Anyway, I joke. But basically, when you have multiple lights in a scene, you have to try and choose one to be the dominant light
Mhm.
source, and subordinate the effect of the others. Otherwise, you will get um, this kind of duality going on throughout the image, where w- both light sources are attacking every form from both sides
Mhm.
and leaving you with very little shadows, or you're creating conflicting shadows to try and deal with the fact that one light is coming in from one side and one light's coming in from the other, and you're trying to resolve them. And there are going to be places where like the lights are going to cross each other and the shadows cross up, um, and it, what you end up doing is kind of breaking a little bit the logic of the lights and
Mhm.
where they are in the scene. So some things can be really well lit within that, like these bread rolls, for example, is quite a nice um, like lit area that totally makes sense form wise.
Yeah.
And likewise, this tankard within the torch. Um, but other things become really, really flat, like Birdman over here, um, and so on, because there's a competition going on with the light sources. So, I mean, you could choose it to be either one, right? You could choose obviously the warm of the tavern to be the light, you know, the candles, and then you play down the blues. So I probably wouldn't go all the way to white with this, or it's like, okay, this is really the thing that's popping off, and I want to show that. So you have to subordinate the candle light to that and diminish its effect, and let this be the main light source. Um, and I mean, I'll briefly sort of paint over this a bit
Mhm.
to show you what I mean if I was taking this as the main light source. And I'll try and keep in a lot of these tertiary details because I understand that these things are probably important to your D&D campaign and that they should be highlighted to some degree in here. So I don't want to like completely obfuscate those details. I
Mhm.
understand that they're probably there for narrative and they're cool for that reason. So I would try not to diminish them. But yeah, I'll quickly sort of paint into this so we can see what I mean about the light sources a little bit.
It's really
But
interesting when
yeah,
you mentioned about like the blue skin and the color. I'd never really thought about how, like the color of the light would almost kind of cancel out the color of the skin or vice versa, whatever. Like it's just something that you never think of. You're like,
yeah,
oh, it's a warm light, so it gives off like the reflection will be a warm light. No, not always.
yeah. Not always. No.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in like a photography dark room, for example,
Mm.
and you go into there with like like a green sweatshirt on, it will just look black. Like
Yeah.
there isn't any green in the red light to reflect off the surface and give you green. So it just looks black in there, and basically everything that isn't red just becomes, a darker shade of red.
Yeah.
You don't get much color and stuff because there isn't any other color in that light for it to use. And yeah, it is a little weird. It took me a little while to kind of figure this out because yeah, it feels like, oh no, there should be something. I'm like, nah, there isn't, unfortunately.
We all remember the cursed dress. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, like the blue and what is it, blue and black or white and gold
Oh
dress
yeah,
thing.
like
Like
who knows what color that dress was?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally forgot about that.
Um, yeah, for example, you could also when you subordinate like one light source to the others, you will find a little bit that it's a bit easier to actually paint all the forms in your image as well because you have a consistent direction that the main light source is coming from, and it doesn't really confuse where the shadows are and what should cross what and so on.
Yeah.
And it would just overall give you the image a lot stronger three-dimensional feeling to it. Overall. And just because you're like desaturating a lot of it to make it work, it doesn't mean that the image necessarily gets less colorful. It's like those saturated parts really get a chance to sing when you have a range of saturation. Like here, there is a lot of saturation in everything from the background to the characters to the items. There isn't really any desaturated bits here, apart from like the bird guy. But if you start to desaturate a little bit more the entire image and really let the stuff sing a little bit, you will start to get a bit more impact. But those things that are colorful will really stand out. And you can have a bit more saturation that way. So I'm obviously doing this really quite heavy-handedly just to do it quickly.
Sure. I'm having a fight in the chat about whether the dress was what color the dress was. Guys, if you're gonna fight about it, at least let us watch, okay? Like if you're gonna throw hands, then start your own live stream and we'll watch that.
Yeah, I don't know what that was all about at the time. There was a dress. It was a bad photo of a dress. What's the color of the dress?
Well, yeah, it was that like depending on the light situation that you were in, it would either look blue and black or white and gold. And so everyone exploded and was like, "No, it's actually this color." And it's like, "No, that's just because your living room lights are like too dark."
Yeah. Everyone's suddenly a Dulux color tester expert. Was that well actually? I work at B&Q in the color mixing department, and
And so I know.
and I mixed this dress color before on a
I,
daily basis.
someone comes in every day and wants the blue and black color of this dress.
Yeah,
Man, I can't
mixed
even
up
calibrate
70
my
liters
monitor
of it so
properly.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a
Uh,
Wikipedia page. Of course it does. Everything has a Wikipedia page.
Memes, yeah. It's
Yeah.
the way it is.
I think I might have a Wikipedia page. If not, I'm going to make
So
one.
yeah, we should. So yeah, effectively, I know this is a very like heavy-handed way of doing it, but the, to subordinate the candlelight a
Mm.
little bit and its effectiveness to this, you'll get a much clearer sense of the three-dimensionality of the place because there's one more consistent source that's lighting things. Also, yeah, you won't have so many like confusing forms where it's like something gets flattened out because it gets lit by every single from both directions at the same time,
Yeah.
with no like reprieve in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess it gives like a draws a little bit more of a sense of like wonder to the thing that's happening as well because it's consistently like pouring out from this
Yeah.
and touching things uh, in a way. And you can still leave like a bit of room value wise to have this stuff show in the shadows. I know it's
Mm-hmm.
important to the story, but it's not like up front with the values and the importance of like our characters up here. We're like, it's down here compositionally, it's nice, it's pointing in, so we're gonna pick it up. It's a nice arrangement of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it is going to be seen. It just doesn't take like so much attention from
Yeah.
our main bits um, in there. But yeah, really cool illustration
Yeah.
overall. I hope that kind of made sense.
It made sense to
Um,
me, and I'm not even an artist, so that that
yeah,
should be good enough. We had a comment from Scar Senix that said, I just ran into a similar problem with one of my artworks a few days ago. I had a green orb light source, a red cape in a blue night sky, and I was really confused on how to combine the three of them together. But your tips
yeah.
have definitely
Nah,
helped.
don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Don't do it. Don't do that stuff. It comes up quite a bit. Various illustrations.
Yeah.
Especially in stylized stuff because someone's outfit will tend to be quite colorful and then you might use the colored light.
Mm.
But yeah, it's happened so many times where they'll be like, "Oh yeah, let's put this light source on the character." And you have to be like, "No, no," because all we're gonna end up doing is oversaturating it to make
Yeah.
the light source read. Like, let's just change the color of that light source, and then it's all good because
Yeah.
you'll just keep cranking the saturation, and then it
Yeah.
won't feel like light anymore.
Yeah. So you might
Um,
want to do that, but you're not going to want to pay me all of the all of the money to fix this like
yeah,
further down the road. Um,
yeah, you can be like, it looks weird. Like, yeah,
yeah.
imagine that.
um,
It's weird how that happens.
yeah. Did you just say actually? Do you have any resources on where to learn color and light, like any videos or books or courses or whatever? Or is it just a matter of
Yeah, there is.
or is it just a matter of real
It's
life?
it's going to sound like a setup, but there is a book called Color and Light by James Gurney, which is a good introduction to that kind of thing. It's not particularly in depth. It doesn't go
Yeah.
into like uh, super detail, but it is like a good glossary of terms
Mm-hmm.
for everything you'll hear about color, and it's a good starting point
Yeah.
if you're beginning because it will give you basically other things that you should look into, but not in any kind of mind bending detail that you're like, oh, I don't get it.
Yeah.
So it's quite good for that. And I mean, obviously, nothing beats uh, doing things IRL and seeing
Hmm.
it for yourself. So, I mean, you will have a lamp in your house, I'm sure. Ask your mother. I'm sure she's got one you can borrow. Um, and yeah, if you get a lamp and you just buy yourself like a pack of like colored cellophane,
Yeah.
and uh, yeah, and you can just test it out. Like, grab a few objects around the house that are different colors, and put this cellophane over the lamp and look at it, and you'll be like very surprised to see, oh, damn, like this that actually kills the color when I do
Hmm.
this, and this really amps up the color, and this changes it in this way.
Yeah.
I think you've got to see it in real life to really believe it. You can do it in 3D programs, but like they have their own algorithms and stuff for working things out. So yes, you can get something super realistic, um, but it actually really doesn't beat seeing it IRL,
Yeah.
and then you can 100% trust what you're seeing.
Hmm.
Um, and that is a very cheap solution.
Yeah.
Uh, just some cellophane. It does
Nice.
really help.
Yeah. Amazing. Right.
Nice. Uh,
Who's up next?
yes.
Uh, I think I
Next
managed to find it
is
from the thumbnail.
Castonia.
Yeah, it is Castonia. Yeah.
Yes.
You said earlier you didn't have any of the names. You lied.
I know, but I Castonia's been around since when I was streaming on
Uh,
my own
okay.
years ago. So I know of, and also I think Castonia watched us yesterday on our stream
Nice. Oh, they're here right now.
as well. They're here right now, so
Hey,
yeah,
Castonia.
thought it only pertinent to
Yeah. Yeah.
return the favor.
Absolutely.
Viewership for Paintovers exchange.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wait.
Be a memorable viewer. Get a
uh,
paint over. Uh,
yeah, exactly. Guaranteed pick.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So yeah, I wanted to ask actually about this one. Um, with the hair, is the design that the hair has this very like rounded, maybe like even curly appearance to it, or is this just like the shape that you happen to put in here? That's a question that I have for you before I go into this.
We shall see. Are those shells or are they bubbles? Oh, are they pearls
Uh,
in the hair?
yeah, I think these are shells, yeah, and pearls,
Oh,
and so on.
cute. They said I
I
wanted
wanted
puffy
puffy
hair,
hair.
but I wasn't sure if I should add hair strands or curls or keep them as forms.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I think the way that the hair is shaded currently, aside from on her head exactly,
Mm.
it it uh it starts to read a little more like fully solid forms,
Hmm.
like pumpkins almost. Um, and I think it can be this kind of very sort of poofy, curly hair, but I think that the shapes of it uh, have to be organized a little bit differently, and you need to like break up the forms a little bit,
Hmm.
so that it doesn't have this like it feels like one large solid form uh, overall in the hair, and I would maybe try and break this up a little bit, uh, show a bit of negative space with the hair uh, in the background. But this is why I wanted to ask, because if it was like not meant to be sort of poofy and it could just be hair, I was going to suggest like it can flow in the water some more. But if it has to be like a bit more rounded and poofy, that can still work. But I would start to break these shapes up.
Hmm.
Similarly, like you've broken the shapes up quite nicely on the hair here. And yes, like it reads as kind of a more solid form, but uh, it feels like layers of smaller surfaces over each other, enough that I can kind of buy the hair, the kind of slick back kind of look. But
Yeah.
that same appearance gets a little bit broken apart on the hair at the back here. So let's see what we can do to kind of push this around. But I do really like the selectiveness of how you're rendering the details everywhere on here. Like I like that you have chosen in the lights only and on the sort of peak of the forms
Hmm.
to show us the texture, and that you always, as you get further away from the bit that you want us to look at, you're like diminishing the detail and the value and the contrast um, away from these points, and it's really effective. Like you, we read this whole thing as being scaly, but when we look, those scales aren't everywhere, but the appearance of that is working really nicely, and that happens to all of
Yeah.
the materials. You have a nice way of only detailing enough to tell us what it is,
Hmm.
and not over detailing it and putting detail in the shadows, for example, when there doesn't need to be,
Mm.
and stuff like that. Um, so I think overall that is a very successful part to the rendering. Um, so let's see what we can do about the shapes in here.
Yeah, I really like the few larger scales on like the arms and the shoulders as opposed to like the many smaller ones that are on the tail or the sort of shirt kind of deal.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really nice.
exactly. That's cool. There's this lovely distribution
Hmm.
of detail and across the forms,
Yeah.
uh, and the forms are really nicely lit.
Mm.
I think this this can also kind of play into this. If you imagine you're underwater, right, and then everything takes on this blue cast because of the light. You know, you got light filtering down through water.
Hmm.
Uh, it gets very blue in its appearance, and then you have something with orange hair, and it is super orange. It looks really quite sort of alien and otherworldly,
Yeah.
and you can keep it as orange for that reason, but um, it's like this orange hair would actually appear much more like it is like here,
Yeah, like almost
much
like a
more
brown.
desaturated overall. Yeah, much more desaturated and um, a little kind of brown almost.
Mm.
And in the shadows, it would probably even go into being like a really dark uh, blue because that blue light is so prevalent. Um, it would really take over everything. So yeah, it's a bit of a difficult choice because if you want to saturate it or give it some highlights, uh, and you saturate it with the orange like you've done here, it's just going to look less realistic in a way,
Hmm.
uh, because of that. So it's a hard one to do.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I won't paint all the hair, but this is kind of maybe where I would start to go with the forms of that. You can keep this roundness, like I said, that you've got, but have it feel like it's kind of floating and twisting in the water itself.
Mm.
Um, and it would keep that sort of volumetric idea going. But we would introduce a little bit of like negative spaces and such going on in here. And maybe that's how I would start to deal with the hair. Another thing that I think can help to like refocus the attention even more um, is to basically like light falls off pretty quickly underwater.
Hmm.
Um, and because the light is being diffused by like through the ocean, it almost acts like a giant soft box. So you don't get like many hard shadows on things underwater unless you're just under the surface. You know, after a certain depth, it's like it's like the sky essentially. It's
Yeah.
like a big soft blue box above everything, and it means that anything that's in shadow just like it falls into shadow quite quickly, but that shadow is like really quite soft as well. You don't get too many like what you've got here, like cast shadows. Um, and this makes it feel like she's maybe not underwater so much. because of this. I'll bring up an illustration that I did of someone underwater, a similar kind of mer creature.
Whoa.
And you can see here that there isn't really any hard cast shadows. Like the light is coming through from the surface, but everything, like across the chest, across the body, is like falling into shadow quite quickly where it's not having direct light on it. But everything is quite soft and diffused. Like all of these forms turn in such a way that makes this really, and it diffuses the lighting quite a bit, and it gives it this like feeling of being underwater. And you can see I'm darkening the bottom half, and letting this gradation go up through the character, and this focuses the light more on the things that we want to look at. But this is kind of what happens underwater: is the light drop off is just very, very quick. It's getting refracted, so the light can't kind of penetrate as deeply, and so on. And like this guy's fairly near the surface. You can kind of see the surface behind here, so you can take advantage of this, what we call caustic reflections, which is this, the light getting refracted by the surface of the water, and it will concentrate it into beams, like this. So if you imagine, when you look at the surface of the water and it's all like wavy, you get shapes like this, right? Essentially, and all of these orange lines would be like kind of white lines where you'd see on the surface, if you were looking at it from above, these would be like peaks that are reflecting light back at you, right? Something like this. So if you imagine that those white things are happening on the peaks, it's the light reflecting off that peak back at us. Yeah. But underwater, it's like all this light's coming in from both sides. This peak becomes like a beam of more concentrated light. And that's what the caustics are. Is these, it's a focused like beam from the wave pattern above. So you get these like really, like seeing here, and here, and that's what that is. And that can be a really nice effect to do on something that's underwater, as well, to help that. So if I quickly do this, and like drop off the light quite softly, but quickly towards the bottom, and then I went in with, say, something like this. Just on the places that we want to focus on a bit. Bring in a bit of that kind of caustic lighting. It can give her a bit more of a, I'm underwater. Essentially.
It's
and
cool
you could
'cause
lose a bit more edges like that.
You don't have to think too much about where the lines are like where those reflections are going to actually look that good. Because I when you were saying that, I was like, man, but then you've got to make it look kind of believable that there's waves. But it's like, nah, just throw down some lines, it'll be good.
Like it doesn't matter. It's it's what we call an unmotivated light source. It comes from outside the illustration, and therefore it doesn't need any like justification or shape or anything. It can be there. It can be whatever shape you need it to be.
It's just here to hang out.
But yeah, I think these are the kind of things that I would look at on this one to try and get that underwater feeling through there a bit more. But yeah, really nice illustration. I do love a mermaid illustration. I had a lot of fun doing this one.
I can imagine. That tentacle in the back is like insane as well.
It's yeah, it's all blurry.
Yeah.
My favorite things to paint. background background blurriness. But yeah, it's a shame because this is a Legends of Runeterra card, and it gets cropped like this.
Oh, what? That's so sad. What?
Yeah. So most of the time in game, it's just like it's that.
That's so tragic. What?
I know.
Did you? Oh man. The thing is, you must have known that one, like going into it. Is he like doing all that?
Yeah, all of them are like that. All of the illustrations for the game are like that.
What?
Like for example, this one's quite funny in the way that it's cropped. Even though they ask for the full illustration, you know, this is the full illustration.
Yeah.
The crop in game is this.
What? That just seems like
Yeah. So
it just seems like so much wasted effort. Oh yeah, I guess I guess if it's on the
they're
wiki,
paying
then
you for like 70% of an illustration that's not going to be there, but
yeah.
you can view the full illustrations. It's not like there is no
Oh,
way to view
okay.
the full ones in
Right.
game. But
I was gonna say.
but for unless you look for it, you're just playing the game, you'll only ever see the crops.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So quite funny.
and Riot, I guess. I mean, they've got the money for it, so like, go for it, I guess.
You can quite literally pay for
hundreds.
you know,
of just
70% of an illustration that's not people aren't going to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go, Castonia. I hope that was helpful for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me find this one.
Hey, that's mine. It's a quickest
there
response.
There we go. That's Scar in the Discord and Scar Senix in the chat. Welcome. Thanks for hanging out.
Yes. Hello. Yeah. Obviously, they're obviously waiting. They're super keen. That's mine.
Yeah, that's mine.
I don't think it was even on screen before they said that.
They just knew it from the thumbnail.
I was like just about to. Yeah, I was just about to click the layer on there. Like, this is mine.
Yeah. We love that.
I'm like, oh, actually, I'll do this one.
yeah. Actually, we'll come back to that one at the end. It's all good.
Yeah, we'll come back to this one. Yeah. So yeah, this one. I think you had mentioned potentially about lighting.
Yes, it was more about contrast with the background, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there is that. I think briefly, I want to just touch on something slightly with the posing. When you see characters from below like this, like what you've done, it is, you know, you do. If I was viewing myself from below, like I basically lose a neck to a certain degree, especially if my shoulder's out. Something like this. So you quite often see that in an illustration like this, that you will actually maybe exaggerate the length of the neck a little bit. And you know, if you were to draw over a lot of kind of riot splashes of stuff like this, when you look at the drawing in and of itself, you'd be like, oh, that neck's kind of quite long. But you'll see, you know, it can make people look a bit more sort of elegant to have that longer neck, but it also kind of fixes something that is a little bit kind of awkward, I guess, which is the head like leaning into the shoulder so hard. And you know, when you give the bit of space around the head to show that plane a little bit, it can give the character a much more sort of powerful and elegant feel about them. They have this like slightly longer neck, and you give them space around it. It just feels a little better overall. But I don't want to focus too much on that. It's a very kind of quick fix on this, really. Like, it's something you can do when the illustration's done. Like what I quite often do is flatten everything down, and I'll cut things out and be like, okay, I'm just gonna move things around that I'm not quite happy with. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's the one thing here that just it feels a little bit awkward, and
Mhm.
I know it's correct. I'm not doubting the correctness of it. I have done this a lot where I follow my reference and then I'm like, but it just isn't as cool
Yeah.
as if I do it wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
there is that to it, and no doubt. So correct is only good until it stops serving the
Yeah.
illustration,
It's
and then it's okay
yeah, I think
to break down.
we've mentioned it in streams before, but it's like knowing the anatomy rules and then also knowing when you're kind of allowed to bend them a little bit and be like, no, maybe they just do have a bit of a giraffe neck and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And like if if it looks cool, people won't care that it's not right,
Yeah.
and or they won't notice.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and so the obviously there is a point of absurdity. You could go in
Hmm.
the wrong direction the other way, and then nothing makes sense,
Yeah.
and that's another thing. So there is a line, but it is something that you can do to uh, make things feel a little less awkward and be less realistic overall.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah. Anyway, that's a small thing on here. Um, the you said like contrast with the background. I don't see there necessarily being too much wrong with the contrast that you have necessarily. Like she does stand out from the background. There isn't really anything competing
Hmm.
like here background wise with the head. Um, and I quite like that if we were just looking at the background from a value state that it goes kind of from dark to light uh, across there. It's a nice gradient. Um, I'd say if anything, the perspective of the background versus the character uh, it is something that maybe feels a little bit strange,
Yeah.
in as much as I am getting the feeling that I should be looking up at this lady, so I'm underneath, and that, but I can see almost like the horizon line
Hmm.
as well. So either she's massive, or she's actually like I'm still looking up at her, but she's leaning backwards,
Yeah.
like super super towards the background, um, which makes it feel a little bit strange. So if I was just looking at the background in and of itself, um, the floor would be like way down here somewhere. And if these rocks are like really big, then I might see like, say, the rock coming in like more like this and going up. You know,
Yeah.
I'm seeing the undersides of them like that going up towards her, and I maybe only see the tops of the tree, uh, and so on. You
Hmm.
know, if I was drawing a cylinder for the place of this rock, that that cylinder would be, like this, and it's towering way above her and behind her.
Hmm.
Um, and then if this same size rock was back here, it would be like this, and so on, going all the way back, and the horizon's out of the image, so it'd all be sky. Uh, unless that was that. But that, again, none of this stuff is really kind of playing into what you perceive to be the issue here, which is like contrast of the character against the background. And if I was to try and see it from your eyes, maybe it's maybe from a value perspective that there is not as much contrast as you would like. Like you're looking at the values of this overall and the values of this overall, and you're in a very similar space with both.
Yeah.
And that's maybe why this goes all the way to white, up here, is to try and glean some of that contrast back. But I think the way that your illustration's set up is that it's not ultimately an issue, the contrast. Like my eye does get drawn to this, but it is a thing where there are multiple light sources here, and they are they are all conflicting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's where you are finding this issue of you like trying to do this light source, and it appears like there's another light source in front and above
Yeah.
that is hitting her face here. So we've got this from the side. We got this one from front and above. We have something back here that's hitting on this. And this light source is, I guess, this same one from above, and we've got the glowing kind of belt thing going on, and then we have this shining in here, and so on, and all of these light sources are competing with each other. So, drawn on the actual picture, LAX.
Yeah.
They're all competing with each other, so you end up with like hard shadows that cut across the forms in places.
Mm-hmm.
And they are introducing like more values into this and cutting up the spaces. And I think at some point it's become a bit confusing as to like what light source is lighting what and from where.
Yeah.
And things get this kind of slightly more individual form kind of feeling about them. Like individually they're kind of rendered quite nicely, but they don't seem to fit together in like a one lighting logic. And they're all kind of conflicting with each other. So I could buy that there is a light coming in from the front that does this, that is being occluded by something like outside of the image, and that's why we get the shadow across the face. And I would maybe sort of commit to something like that more strongly on the image overall, and kind of diminish the effectiveness of some of the other lights in the scene. And I think you would get a bit more coherence back, pardon me, like overall in the illustration. And that would give you lots of much darker values that would enable this kind of contrast from like this ball to really, push our focus even more. Because I think you just have too many light sources from too many directions, and they are all competing with each other. And then you're finding there's no room for shadows anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't make anything dark enough to get the contrast that you want overall. So I'll do this very quick because I do want to get some other ones as well. But if I'm committing to that light source that's at the front a bit more, maybe just a bit more of a gradient going on top to bottom, you would find that we'd get this kind of contrast back that would enable your lights to pop a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So on.
I just realized that we still have the point redemptions thing on, and Lemon Evelyn has redeemed a hydrate. So thank you so much. I actually don't have any water with me, so
oh no,
I will not be able to take part in that. But thank you anyway.
Yeah, thank you. I don't drink.
So
I quit drinking.
So. I take whatever moisture I need out of the air.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I just don't drink.
So stupid. Drinking is for suckers. Yeah. The reason why we have the hydrate redemption.
It's bad for your health.
The hydrate redemption is to remind us not to drink. It's actually dehydrate.
Yeah. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. For your health.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, essentially, I would drop the too many light sources. Focus on one main one and like a secondary one. And this will give you more contrast um, to push to your focal area. Overall, I think you would find maybe that is the issue that you were having with it popping against the background, is that you didn't have any room in the value range to gain contrast because all the light sources are crossing over each other and giving you no shadows.
Yeah.
No room to hide. Yeah. All right then. Thank you very much. Really nice rendering on a lot of this though. Like the silks, the face is really well rendered. Like, it was really, really, really cool. Quite a high standard of polish there. So if you can kind of get to grips with the lighting logic and just put less lights in, I think you'll have a really strong image overall, because you can definitely render. So less is more.
Yes.
Less is more.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
So we are into our second hour now, and this one is from Darwin Prawira. If that's Darwin Prawira.
That's got to be correct.
It's got to be correct. It's the only possible way.
It's got to be correct.
Yep.
It's the only way to say that.
Yeah. So if you're here, then say hello and just tell me how amazing I pronounced your name. So.
Yeah. Nice.
But all they said on theirs was they'd like to get feedback on how to improve anything, really. So
anything.
Anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I picked this one because it was quite interesting. I saw that you'd done like the robot render on its own.
Yeah.
And then there's the image with the robot in, and I think there within lies one of the main issues with this that makes the scale of this read in a way that betrays the size of the machine. And that is that you made a render of the machine is very detailed, and it's nicely put together. But yeah, it has a lot of detail, a lot of small detail, a lot of small forms. And then it goes into an environment that is done with a much kind of larger, more textured brush, and overall a lot less detail.
Yeah.
What happens here is that the scale of the landscape and the machine gets very confusing. So it kind of looks like a toy, in a small landscape, and not like this giant machine looming over a landscape, because there is this complete flipping of what we should be seeing detail wise. And to sort of do this, your landscape would need to have a lot more detail and scale. Not necessarily detail. It needs to have a lot more scale presented in it, in the texturing. Here, very small, like crunchy details. We go to black as well, so there's a lot of high contrast. And then here, it's like just big empty, blotches of color with a little detail in, and it flips the scale around in a way. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, this was like lit independently, almost a bit like it's in a studio showroom with multiple lights on it, which is fine. But now it's outside and it's being lit predominantly from one direction. And yeah, so the lighting is mismatched as well. So now this looks like really out of place in the wilderness, and so it needs to follow the same kind of logic that you've set up here in the landscape. Like you've understood there's atmospheric perspective.
That's
It's Friday.
The thing that got me was just that.
Yeah, it's you've understood that there's atmospheric perspective and that is collapsing the color range into blue the further away we get, and it is also bringing up the darkest values to be closer to that of the sky itself back here, which gives us the depth and the scale, right?
Yeah.
But that's not happening to our boy over here, and that makes him really stand out. So now he's got these like real dark darks, and these should be taking on a bit more of this kind of blue hue back here. So I can do this with a lighten layer to grab the sky and start to knock back his blacks a little bit. And I maybe would even do this in such a way that, again, just to work with the scale, that even this stuff further back gets knocked back even more. So I'm doing this in kind of layers here to kind of show this, separate him out a little bit. So that's kind of one thing that would help with him fitting into this environment, is to think about the atmospheric perspective. Oh my God, that word. The atmospheric perspective affecting him in the same way that it affects the environment, and this would really kind of place him a little bit more. The other thing is something diffusedly.
Add it in with diffusedly. You need that that atmospheric perspective makes the very diffusedly. It affects it diffusedly.
Yeah. This is something I won't be able to like fix in such a short paint over, but I might be able to show with a textured brush. But you would need a lot more in the way of denser detail in the environment to match the detail that we see on him, and to really push the scale of this place.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got a pine tree brush. I forgot.
Nice.
That was not even scripted, I promise you.
You know, I've heard that you're not even a real artist unless you have a pine tree brush. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, you heard correct, obviously.
Yeah.
You're not a real artist unless you use the pen tool instead of the lasso tool as well.
Classic. What a throwback.
Yes. Don't use texture brushes like this. This is just for demonstration purposes only. This is not and should not be followed as an example.
You heard it
but
here.
What this is doing is hopefully...
Professional art director tells you to use pine tree brush for all of your needs.
Yeah, do not just solid pine tree the environment like this. It won't help anyone. It won't help you. But yeah, what you can start to see here, though, hopefully, is that by like using something that has a lot of density in its shape, like the textured brush and the pine tree brush, and then like scaling that texture, arrows, scaling that texture into the distance, we build up a sense of scale very quickly. So now this guy like starts to look really big in the environment, whereas before it kind of looks like a toy, standing in like a a model environment. We're sort of pushing that scale a bit more. And that's basically like the two biggest things in here that I think would help this one going forward. But yeah, I do really like this image. Something that made me chuckle in the beginning is like, you know that meme from Narcos where it's like standing in the pool?
Yeah.
You know, and it like switches so it's like really lonely.
Yeah.
It really gives me that like loneliest robot kind of feel. He's just
Yeah,
out there like,
yeah. The first thing I
um,
thought was like was very similar. I was just kind of stood there looking out. I can just imagine him just being like, "Oh man," like he's just really upset.
yeah, yeah, exactly. He's out there
He's
just
had a
like,
week.
man, where are the? He's just got no like monsters to beat up.
Yeah,
There's just none.
yeah,
You know, he's like waiting there. He's like waiting there for like the enemy, you know, lizard to
yeah,
just come and smash the city. And he's
yeah.
like,
He's
there are none.
he's been training. His man's been training his whole life.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. uh, There are no lizards. Um, okay.
uh,
How long have I got? Yeah,
you got a while. You got
I'll
a while.
try it. Oh wow, this one was quite quick actually,
Yeah.
in a way. Um, everyone's favorite Yone from League.
Yeah, they said it was
If
Yone.
you've ever seen,
I
yeah,
I have I don't
have you
think
ever
I
seen
have
that?
seen them.
Um, there's there's a very funny video about people who play Yone having Yone syndrome, um,
Okay.
where they basically just can't help but like intentionally die in the game. Like it's just hardwired into their brain to like jump in 1v5. And like if someone in your game is affected by it, there's like several stages of Yone syndrome, uh, and to look out for it. It's very funny. Um, but yeah, uh, I I love the composition. Yes, yeah. So it was a fan made skin by another artist. Um, shout out
Shout out to
other
Lucy
artist.
Devi on ArtStation/Twitter.
All right,
Oh
shout
no,
out
where's he
Lucy. Let's
gone?
go. Oh, have we
Alex.
lost my screen share? What did I do?
I think he might have just accidentally closed out of whatever meeting it is. So I'll be back. I'll fix it and we'll be back.
All right.
There we go. I think we might be back. Hold on. Uh, uh, unless. Oh wait, I need. Oh wait, no. Hold on. Hold on. We're not back yet. I need to. We're not fully back. We need. They can hear me. Maybe not you. Let me. Let me grab this one. It's almost back. Let's try this. Can you say something?
Hello, hello.
There we go.
One, two.
Can you guys hear Alex now? You should be able to. And we'll take it from here. I had to throw us into a Google Meets really quick, and I'll move the browser like down there. There we go.
We can hear him. Cool. All right.
Oh,
Yeah. For some reason, we got ganked.
yeah, we did. It was because you were, it was because you were dissing on all of the Yoni players. That's what it was.
We got totally ganked. Jungle death.
Yeah, absolutely destroyed. But
Yeah.
we're so back. We're so back.
Yeah, we're so
Currently.
back. We're so back. Yeah, I'll try be quick. I'm obviously not going to get to everything
Yeah.
I wanted to get to, but we can figure out
Yeah.
a way to do that.
Yeah.
I can talk without moving your mouth. Yeah, I know, amazing.
Yeah, the camera is off. I do not want to waste time like messing around with cameras. So Alex's camera is off.
Yeah, it's fine. Actually, you can just look up my nose on that
Yeah,
picture.
I was gonna say the photo's there. So
Yeah, I'm a nose for the most part. Okay, so yeah, with this one, I carried on painting while we were offline, so that when we came back, it was done to a degree with what I was going to do. So yeah, basically this one is just about consolidating the light sources again, and picking like one light source. I've chosen the kind of the horn that seems to be emitting some light on the top of the head, to draw our attention to the head, and this, because we only commit to like one light source giving us, the illumination, we can have like stronger shadows and stronger light shapes, and really sort of pick out the focal point a bit more and give us our contrast. Because I think what we kind of have here is a lot of values in the mid range, and we have like the lighter values of the head, but we don't have any like hard, strong light shapes to really draw us in, right? And if I do this and I make this much more of like a pin light, like a light coming from a single point, in this case the horn, and it emits from that, there's a logic to the lighting then. It's all coming from like one position, and it lights forms, from this point outwards, and that can order everything in space for us quite nicely, but it means that we can get very hard shadows, very clear lights, and we can like put the light behind certain objects in the frame. And this means we can basically just draw a bit more attention into the piece, and do things quite nicely, like the nice light coming from below that catches the forms of his face, and this shape can be like really, really kind of quite hard and graphic for that reason. So it's really just refocusing that. I think it's nice for the rest of this to have a bit more of this like ambient kind of coloring and lighting to it. It doesn't draw too much attention. It adds to the kind of whimsical winter kind of feel to it. But then we bring this in for the bit more intensity around the face, because he's quite an intense character. He's like, you look at all of his splashes, he's very like show offy, kind of stoic, like very, very like moody character. And yeah, here it does have that in his facial expression, but he's so sort of softly lit from everywhere that it kind of gives him a bit of a like Disney Prince
Yeah.
kind of look. Whereas something like this, we bring back that edginess a bit.
Hmm.
We do have this kind of wonderful kind of whimsicalness going on, but then it's like serious business up in here. Uh, because Yone's serious business. Uh,
It's serious
you
business
know,
dying. It takes a lot.
yeah, yeah. Going 0 and 10 is hard.
Yeah.
It, it is
It's
it is actually
dedication.
hard to be that bad. Yeah, like you have to actually the effort that you would put into being good, you have to put in the opposite way. So yeah, yeah, it is a lot of effort. But yeah, really nice piece. Last thing I'll say about this, just good note, is that I really love the like the compositional flow uh, of the way that everything has been designed in here to sort of keep framing and going around our character. It's really nice. Like
Hmm.
there's obviously been a lot of thought to the framing and the composition of this overall. I think the outfit that the other artists have designed is really nice. So
Yeah.
yeah, overall, really cool piece. Lot to say about that. And yeah, this is where I'd go with the lighting. Um, okay, boom in a box.
Nice.
Um, this one, yeah, this one. This is one where I was looking at it and I was like, yeah, this is cool. I like the scene.
Hmm.
I like the atmosphere here, but it is so high contrast throughout the entire image. Like it goes to black and then it goes to white and it does this boom, 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 all over front to back.
Hmm.
It makes it so that all these graphic shapes and areas of high contrast like grab attention in like equal measure across the image. It's not like we miss this, but it's not the first thing we're drawn into
Yeah.
necessarily, and there isn't enough contrast here that's different from the contrast in the rest of the image to kind of keep us in.
Mm.
Um, and so the eye wanders quite a bit, and so you end up like looking at stuff that is only tertiary uh,
Yeah.
importance overall. So what I'd like to do here, and lighten, when you're photo bashing, lighten layer is your best friend because
Mm.
you can basically pick a value um, and paint that over your image. And basically anything that is darker than the value you pick, you can paint down to that value. And it's brilliant for separating out uh, a piece like this where you've kind of put together lots of different photos because it does two things. It crushes the details together
Hmm.
and it gives you a way to separate out values front to back in a more organized way. Um, yeah, front to back like this. So you can basically organize your values and kill contrast, but you can say like, okay, anything past a certain point is going to be this value and like condense it down to that. So you can, yeah, sort of layer things out in a really, like this, really easy way,
Yeah.
uh, and so on. And this is kind of what I'd be doing on here. It's kind of like grading, but it's a bit more active than grading. Like you're actually changing values probably in the image. But I would like knock down basically some of the whites a little bit,
Hmm.
and I would reorder the values front to back, um, and save a little bit more of your highest contrast values for things that are a bit more important for us understanding the story, which is um, our main detective here
Hmm.
checking out the crime scene. And I'm sorry, I'm just roughly sort of separating some of this stuff out to get a bit more of that depth, but without too much attention. Yeah, this is definitely something that I would do as this kind of last step here, is just really sort of play with the values like this. But you'll see, like, I'm using 2 layers, multiply to knock the lights down a little bit, and lighten to reorder the values. But you can see, like, very crunchy, high contrast stuff going on here. And then here, it's kind of refocusing this a little bit. It's a little bit heavy-handed because of time. I would use the layers that you have to help you separate out and give you kind of cleaner selections. And, you know, say you wanted a bit more prominence on this character, he's still important in a way. Like, you can bring him back in value a little bit, you know, so you want a bit more like layering to this. Like, you have the ability to bring this back with your light and layer and create depth like that. But you also have the ability to just push stuff really far away.
Yeah.
And condense the values a bit. I think there's one thing that I would maybe look at, and that is overall, there is a little bit of a perspective thing going on, that you have your horizon line, like sort of like here, and, you know, therefore, like, the floor plane be coming out something like this, right? From that point. Sorry, horizon's probably about there. And so on. And so I understand that potentially this floor is damaged, right? So all of these things are at different angles. You know, they're like coming down at different angles.
Yeah.
But this dude here is standing currently like on a plane that is like tilted towards us in a really like extreme angle. You know, him as a cylinder appears to be on a plane like this, and it feels a little bit odd. Like, given that the rest of the scene has these tilted planes, but they're not super extreme.
Yeah.
But this guy's like on a completely like different plane, standing on the floor. I would maybe look, you know, either he could be like a crouching guy lifting this up,
Yeah.
and that would kind of make a bit more sense. Or he would actually be like here, lifting this up, and he's on like a plane that is still slanted, but it's not in the same way that it's slanted here. I don't know, it's the only thing that kind of feels a little bit out of place to me. So maybe there could be a bit of destruction here, a bit more, that kind of shows, okay, he's on a plane there that is really out of kilter. Yeah. But yeah, someone's mentioned in chat, like, drawn to the red. Perfect. Yeah, this is a great color cue, as with the orange in here, to help draw us in. But I think you'll find when it's like super high contrast like this, yeah, this is a color pop and a difference from the blue. But what'll stick out more is like black against white and like hard shapes doing that. So you will eventually get into this, but like, first of all, you'll be picking up like this, maybe all this kind of crunchy detail.
Sure.
Whereas initially we need to read this, and yeah, like playing with the values a bit more like that would work there. Alrighty, but yeah, really cool. I do like a good photo bash. That's really cool.
Yeah, it looks nice. The topic is really interesting too. Like murder mystery kind of scene is awesome.
Yeah, there's no doubt he's been murdered.
Yeah. Someone, whether human, demon, whatever, someone got to that guy, and it did not
Yeah,
go. It did not end well for him.
he ordered like the uh the three
The three chili, the
the
three
three
chili.
the three chilies like peri peri
Yeah,
Nando's.
yeah. That guy got like the ultra spicy Nando's.
He was showing off to her on a date
Yeah,
at Nando's. Got his bird down.
yeah. They crashed. They're like, well, I told you it wasn't worth it. I
Yeah,
told you
yeah.
not to do it.
She's like, very impressive. Thank you for
Yeah.
ruining our date. With this stupid hot sauce challenge. Okay. Uh,
So this is
so
our last one, right?
yeah, this will be our last one because I got to run at 5.
Yeah, no worries.
So cool. This one. Yeah, I think on this you have a really nice depth of field. What I
Mhm.
mean is that the background is really out of focus, and then the focus is on our character.
Yeah.
And I think if you commit to this depth of focus in the whole image, then it would be really successful and read really well. But I think what kind of breaks it at the moment is it's set up nicely for the background and for her, but then that logic doesn't apply to our foreground characters, and they're nicely rendered, but you've set up this depth of field with the background, and so them not adhering to it makes them appear really flat, and then it makes the background seem too blurred for how the camera would be focused in this scene. And so there's this real mismatch between like no depth at the front and loads of depth at the back. And I think if I was to kind of quickly change this, it would be to commit to that depth of field, and that would mean dropping dropping these guys like a lot back in value overall, and committing a bit more to the lighting scenario that you've set up with this like stronger light from behind. So if you imagine like she's backlit, and we're behind these guys, essentially these dudes are basically in shadow. We're seeing them from the shadow side mostly, and they're much closer to the camera. So at least this dude on the left, he would be he'd be really quite out of focus. Over here, let's do something like this. Erase back through. More like that. And then I'll just super copy the whole image again and do blur, but like less, bit less. Okay. For that guy.
I see. Yeah.
So yeah, now what we've done, it's like and this is what you'd set up, right, with the image. You have, it's like you've got a DSLR camera and you're taking a photo of this lady. So you zoomed in a bit and then you focus the camera on her, and because you've now focused the camera at that particular depth, anything out of that depth behind it is going to blur.
Yeah.
And it's going to blur quite a bit, and anything at that depth towards you is also going to be out of focus, but to a smaller degree.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean by depth of field. And because you'd set that up in the image with her in the background, like if I zoom in like this works.
Yeah.
Right? Focus on her, blurred background. If I zoom out to where we actually are, and now these guys are in the same focus, and if not more, really, because we see like a ton of insane detail, on these guys, which we don't necessarily see on her even. And so there's now like a mismatch in the focus. So it flattens the image. It makes these two guys appear really flat, and it makes her seem like quite undetailed by comparison.
Yeah.
But if I commit to that depth of field, like this, where she's the one in focus. This guy's really blurred because he's close to the camera. This one a little bit less blurred. And now we're behind them. I start to sort of paint in a bit of the lighting, a bit of the bloom. You will start to get a much more an impression of the space in the image, and the depth overall will become a lot clearer. So just again, lighten is really good for kind of quickly getting this effect in. I'll keep erasing back through. But yeah, committing to the depth of field will give it a ton of realism as well. Because you're mimicking how the camera would work.
Yeah, I mean, they've said in the chat, I can see it already looks a lot better. I feel like it also adds some more motion to the foreground guys as well.
Yeah, it's very cinematic. You know, 'cause you are literally mimicking how the camera works. That is the depth of field thing going on. And yeah, even though these guys don't have motion blur, like they are just blurred, because their poses denote like action and moving in, it's going to give you this feeling of like the frame moving. Like it's very cinematic in that way, which is kind of cool. Also, it's not wasted that you painted the detail. I find if you're going to do this kind of thing, where you have some stuff in the foreground blurred, it's actually better to kind of have detail and blur it than to just like paint something loosely. Or to just paint it kind of like it needs to be and then blur it, because you need kind of detail to blur for it to feel like detail's out of focus. And so you would still probably go about it in the way that you've done with painting some of the detail and giving it that, just to make the blur work overall. So it's not like wasted time or anything like that. But yeah, I would yeah, sorry. It is like the better way of going about it, I think. Otherwise, again, it just feels like a bit unfinished otherwise. Just see if I can add a little bit of bloom. This is the other that works quite nicely, is like when you do backlight something and you have something inside that, like the sword, right, that is occluding the light completely from your view. Because the like you have the lens on the camera, and I guess that lens is receiving light from both sides. Or like all around. You get these like blooms where it appears like the light is like coming around the surface to a degree, and you get like this coloring in the middle, where this surface is like completely blocking the light, and that kind of bloom can add again to this effect. You're just mimicking like effects that happen in camera. You maybe don't necessarily want to go as bright as this on here. It really depends on the lighting that you're going for, but again, it can help with this kind of depth of field look in here essentially. But yeah, that's actually one last thing. Lighten. Let's see what we can do here.
Nice. Yeah, I've got a couple more minutes. I don't want to make you late.
That's okay. I'm only going to the gym. I don't really want to go. Okay. Yeah, I'm just putting in something where it's like, oh, we got an orange light. Maybe let's see if we can cool off the shadows a bit. But I want to swallow up some of the darkest darks, the blacks, a little bit. You'll see what I mean in a sec. So here we do have places where it goes like into black, kind of all over the image in various places. And you can use lighten at the very end to like unify the darks of an image, so that nothing goes completely to black, and anything that does has a bit of color in it.
Mhm.
And this can give the image like this little, it's almost like movie soft focus in a way. You know, there's, if you see here, it's quite sort of crunchy and like visceral in its appearance, whereas this kind of like softens it off to a degree, and again like lends to the motion, and it also brings in this kind of complementary coloring. So we've got this kind of orange and teal going on
Yeah.
here, whereas here it's like there's reds, there's browns, there's blues, there's greens, etc. And so the color palette is going a little in a few different directions, and it gives it a slightly artificial feel, where you kind of unify everything, like bring the darks together, bring the color palette together, unite the shadows under one color and the lights under another, and it just harmonizes the piece a bit more and gets rid of like anomalies
Yeah.
of value and color like all over the place. Uh, yeah, so there we go. That is my sort of grading, and that's, if you want to look up more stuff about that, like movie color grading, and is really good. There's great videos on YouTube of people like talking about how they would color grade a scene from a movie, and they'll go through it on their color grading software, but it's basically the same that you do on Photoshop.
Yeah. It's transferable. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really helpful for finishing images. Like I wouldn't go back in and paint on this image. I
Hmm.
would just do what I've done here and do this post-processing, if you like.
Yeah. Um, which is nice for, it's nice for you, Reen, who can just go in, do all the post processing, and then be like, wow, what an improvement. You don't have to go in and change any like biology, any anatomy or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, you can see the effect from, and this is just me doing it roughly, but if you go in with your actual layers, you'll be able to do this in a way that
Yeah.
doesn't compromise the finish,
Yeah.
whereas me doing it roughly kind of does.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
there we
Amazing.
go.
Well,
No what?
I believe we can call it there. So thank you everybody so much for submitting your artwork. I mean, we had so many people submit stuff in. There's no way we would have been able to get through all of them, but I'm sure I'm sure you learned a thing or two anyway. I think it's always good to see feedback, even if it's not on your own work. Um, thank you, Alex,
Yeah.
for coming along. Thanks for
No
dealing with
problem.
the dealing with the tech issue as well earlier on. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's all right. No worries.
uh,
If only we knew what it was.
yeah, literally no idea. But if you guys want to do something else just after this stream, I'm going to hop into the Discord and we're going to have a little Friday evening like game session. We'll be playing some Gartic Phone, so come along to that. It'll be good fun. Um, but yeah, other than that, we'll see you next week again for a stream. I believe I've got Leone next week. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, other than that, I will say goodbye. I'll let Alex go, and I'll see you
Alrighty.
later. Amazing.
Peace out, everyone.
See you
Have a
later,
good
everybody.
weekend.
Have a great weekend, guys. Bye bye.